Hello and welcome to the Alpha Movement Podcast. My name is Tom Foxley, and on today's show I am joined by Christine Hassler. She is a life coach who has been through a huge amount. She's spoken about her story numerous times, and if you want to get a kind of background on her, I would check out Joe Rogan's podcast with her. I don't know what episode it was one of his many, but I'd check that out just so you know a bit more about her and kind of what she's been through to get where she is now. She's being a life coach, I think you have a very negative connotation around you, but Christine was one of the first people that I heard actually on Joe Rogan's show that really made sense and really knew what she was talking about and wasn't just bullshitting her way through. She's a great coach, and I really enjoyed having her on the show. And also she dug into a few of one of my issues that I have around social media and that kind of stuff, which if you listen on, you'll get to hear about that. Before that though, I just want to say welcome to 2017 and thank you for listening throughout 2016. And let's get on the show with Miss Christine Hassler. So Christine, welcome to the show. It's a real pleasure to have you on. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Just finished a workout. I'm actually in Austin, Texas, visiting my family for the holiday, so feeling good.
Nice. Well, we were talking about your non-negotiables before we started. Can you elaborate on that a tiny bit?
Yes. Well, sleep is one of my non-negotiables. So that is super important. I don't believe you can catch up on sleep. Like, you can't sleep 4 or 5 hours during the week and then catch up on the weekends. So I like to get between 7 and 8 hours every night. So that's super huge for me. And then meditation in the morning. I have a practice between meditation and breath work, and my journaling, usually anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, and then some kind of physical activity. So I do intermittent fasting. So I stop eating by 8 or 9 at night p.m. And then I don't eat again until 11 or 12. So I give myself anywhere from 13, 14, 15 hours of fasting. So before I go do my workout, I do kind of like the bulletproof method, but my own adaptation on it. I either do coffee or yerba mate tea with some raw cacao power, MCT oil from Onnit, because I think they're the best, a little bit of ghee, a little bit of maca, some unsweetened almond milk, blend it up, drink that before my workout, have an awesome workout or a really intense yoga class, and then come back, have my first meal, and start my day.
Nice. You've opened up a whole can of worms, so there's so many things that I want to touch on. Are you following a kind of high-fat diet?
I follow a diet that feels good for me. So what I've learned is, and I've been a trainer and nutritionist, I've had worn a lot of different hats in my career before I really settled into the work that I do now. And so I've experimented with what works best for my body. And the intermittent fasting really, really works well for me because, I run at a pretty high pace. I'm doing a lot of things. And when we have any kind of stress, even if it's good stress, our digestion has to work even harder. So the intermittent fasting for me really gives my body a chance to not work so hard on digesting. And it really helps with my hormonal balance, my adrenals, my thyroid, all those kinds of stuff, because my body can really restore instead of working so much on digesting food all the time, because it takes a lot of energy to do that. So I found that really worked for me, and it was really hard because I love breakfast. I love eating. It's hard to do that. But when I realized how much it helped not only my digestion, but I don't know why I'm having so much trouble saying that word, but my focus, it really helped my focus. And in terms of the high fat diet, I don't do the whole bacon slopped with butter and then eggs on top of that and then avocado on top of that. But I eat a lot of really good fats. So I eat a lot of avocado, coconut. I do eat some meat. I make sure it's high quality meat because, again, I just experimented with different things. I was vegan and raw for about 4 months and I felt awful. It did not work for me at all. So I think that for all of us, there's no one diet that works for everyone. We have to really experiment with some different things and give some time with it, and then find what really works for us in terms of, and I think one of the misleading things is that we think what's working is what makes us lose weight or what gives us the perfect outside appearance, but you've got to pay attention to how you're sleeping, your hormones, your cortisol level, your digestion. You've got to pay attention to all of that to really see what works for you.
That is so refreshing to hear. There's so many people that want to give, as I was saying before, the very specific outcome. But if you're looking at how you feel, I think that's so important. What was the turning point to make you try going vegan and raw?
It was about 10 years ago, and it was just, I live in LA and like I do yoga, and, everybody was like shaming because, I ate meat. and I just thought, and again, I'm a very spiritual person as well. So, I read a lot about how spiritual people are vegan. And so I just wanted to try it. And again, like it's for me, I do better with like cooked foods. And so vegan raw for some people, like if it's a lot of raw, and so it's very cold on your system. And, so I tried it. I gave it my best shot. I thought it'd make me more spiritual, or, I don't know, more of a yogi. And really I was just cranky and always hungry and very tired. So definitely didn't make me more spiritual.
Was there a moment you just thought, oh, fuck, I'm not doing this anymore?
Well, I went to the doctor because my hormones were all screwed up. And he's like, have you done anything differently? And I'm like, I've been raw vegan. He goes, go have a piece of meat. You'll feel better.
Sounds like a good doctor. So you mentioned there's spirituality. What does spirituality mean to you?
In the most concise way to describe it, it means love with truth and a connection and a knowing to the oneness that we are. So I respect all religions. I can find something meaningful in pretty much any of them. I don't subscribe to one specific one because in my experience, there's a lot of rules and guidelines and some judgment. And true spirituality to me is unconditional love, and really not just sitting and meditating and chanting, but being love in action. So practicing acceptance and gratitude and really knowing that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So I use everything in my life, even the challenging things. Like, my last book was called Expectation Hangover, and it's basically how to heal and leverage disappointment. It's not about managing your expectation, it's about using disappointment as a vehicle to really learn and grow. Because part of being spiritual is to know, hey, I know it seems like we're here to like work out and look good and date and, have a partner and achieve great business things and make money and do all those things. That's a very like external goal line part of life. But then there's the soul line. There's this evolution. There's this growth that we're all here for. And we're kind of here to heal our unresolved issues, grow in consciousness, break generational patterns, and remember that we are love. Like that's the game we're all playing.
When did you figure this stuff out? Is it something you've kind of always had floating around in your head, or is it something you kind of brought together, or is there a particular time that you went, this is like, and it all came together?
It's a great question. As a little girl, I was super tapped in and felt very close to, we'll just use the word God for simplicity. I don't think it's like some man in the sky, but we'll just use that as like to describe universal love, truth, unconditional love. So I felt this connection to God, but I didn't really know what it was. But I remember feeling it. And I also remember being incredibly intuitive, like I could feel other people's emotions. And it was very scary because as little kids, we don't really know what that is. But I truly believe when we're little, we know we're connected. Like we're so connected to the oneness and to the joy and to the love. And we don't have any stories about ourselves. Like you don't see a 3-year-old be like, I feel really insecure today and I'm doubting my worth and like my confidence is really struggling. No, they don't do that. And I'm really worried about Thursday. They don't talk like that. They're like so in the moment of love and joy because they're connected. But then, like, because it started to feel scary and because things in my life started to happen that were challenging, I started to shut all that down. In fact, I started getting migraines right in my third eye. Our third eye is like kind of like our intuition. It's like our spiritual kind of sight. And when that started happening, that's when I started to forget and I just started to disconnect. And then it was like in my 20s when my life fell apart and I ended up kind of doing my whole life differently and lost everything and reinvented myself, that I started to become curious and I started to feel this longing, because for me and for a lot of people that rediscover spirituality, sometimes you have to lose everything to get on your knees and go, okay, like I surrender. Especially for those of us like me, like I've been super controlling. I like am very logical. I make my bed every day. I like knowing what the plan is and following the plan. So when I lost everything and was in complete uncertainty, I had no other options other than to go, all right, like I need some help. And maybe doing all this on my own isn't such a great idea. And so it was sort of in that place of, call it a dark night of the soul, bathroom floor moment where I was just like, I can't do this anymore, where I started to become open to it. And I didn't really know what to do. And this is something I coach a lot of people on that like really want to become more spiritual. Their first question is always how do I do it? And it's not really a how question. It's really more of removing the layers that are in the way of remembering who you truly are, healing the unresolved issues that separate us from that God source experience and knowing, and taking action every day that's more in the direction of forgiveness and acceptance, gratitude, and love. So I don't know if I answered your question. That was very long-winded.
Yeah, I think so. You brought up a lot of interesting points, especially the kind of whether you're spiritual in inverted commas or not. In order to make progress, I think you have to come back and peel those layers back of the onion and just kind of get back to who you truly are. And I think that's whether you're religious in any kind of way, that's what you're essentially doing. You're kind of getting back to the source. In terms of like to jump around, this is kind of my podcasting style. I jump around all over the place. To begin with, meditation and journaling. What does your practice look like?
Well, first thing I do is breath of fire, because I have a busy mind. And so for me, just to drop right into meditation is sometimes hard. So breath of fire is you kind of hold your arms up in the air in a V position. Anybody can Google it and kind of see the Kundalini hand position for it. But the focus is really breathing out through your nose really fast. And it's like a deep belly breath. So it's like you're pushing air from below your navel out your nose super, super fast. So it kind of sounds like that. And I do that for 3 minutes, because breath of fire is all about stirring up like just the gunk, all the monkey mind stuff, emotions that may be there. And just doing that for 3 minutes helps me kind of get the energy out of my body, like that chaotic energy. And then I just drop into meditation. When I first started meditating, I studied transcendental meditation for a while. Then I found kind of another spiritual teacher who gave me a mantra. So when I first started, I was using either guided meditations or a mantra that I would recite, because I had a really hard time just sitting in empty presence. But after years of meditating with a guide or with a mantra, I now can just close my eyes, listen to my breath, and just go into stillness. And I don't need a mantra or any kind of guide. But I feel like for people that are just starting, having some kind of guided meditation visualization or some kind of mantra that you're using is really helpful, because it just helps to have dominion over the mind and all those thoughts that all of us have.
Nice. When did you start meditating?
Probably at least 12 years ago.
Okay, nice. And what's been the biggest change you've seen as a result of that?
I'm just a less reactive person, and less stressed. So much of my story is coming off antidepressants and having a lot of worry and a lot of anxiety. I was sort of like a duck on water, like above the surface, I seemed smooth, but underneath it was like, like lots of anxiety. And it's helped me come into have a better relationship with my mind, because like I said, I have a strong mind and it's always going. And I've learned that I can't control every thought, but I can have awareness as to where that thought train is going. And in expectation hangover, when I talk about the mental level, because the book is divided into really healing first on the emotional level, then mental, then behavioral and spiritual. So it's how to heal and transform each level. And on the mental level, I use the metaphor of like being a horseback rider with our mind. Like the mind is the galloping horse, but we have to remember that our consciousness is like the horseback rider who can go, whoa, and stop it when it's galloping too fast, or when it's going in the wrong direction, we can use those reins to redirect it. And so meditation has been a great way for me to realize I have the reins. Before meditation, my mind was just this galloping horse I felt like I had no control over. But meditation has really shown me that I can be aware of the galloping horse and be the rider and decide where it stops and how it needs to be redirected. Nice.
And you mentioned journaling as well. What does that look like?
It depends. So a lot of times with journaling, I will be kind of writing out like my intentions for the day, or if I feel So something's on my mind, I use a technique called release writing, which is also in the book. And it's less journaling and more stream of conscious mind dumping, where I just if I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling yucky or I'm feeling mad at somebody, I'll just be like, I'm mad because, I'm sad because, and just write it really fast so I can't even really read it, and then just rip it up. So sometimes the journaling is like that. It's more release writing. And other times, the morning is when we're most connected. So it could be ideas. It could be my intentions for the day. It could just be thoughts I had. It could be capturing dreams. So it just kind of depends on what I feel like I need.
Is there a way that you keep that kind of connection? Because you mentioned you're most connected in the morning. Is there a way that you kind of redistribute that throughout the day?
I think it's just being present, honestly, and how we start our day and end our day really determines the whole day. So I found that just by starting my day like that, it just kind of keeps me in that place all day. And when I skip the meditation or I skip my morning practice, I feel it. And so throughout the day, I'll just notice, one thing I really pay a lot of attention to is my breathing. And in coaching people as long as I have, I always watch and listen to how little people breathe. And they'll be sharing something. I'll be like, breathe, take a breath, come back into the present moment. You're alive. You're in a body. The breath is our connection to that present moment. It's our connection to everything. So that's one thing. And then I really, again, this is another thing in the book on the behavioral level, I take on the role of a scientist, because I've learned that for myself, trying to change myself or my behavior by judging myself doesn't work. Being hard on myself is effective temporarily, but it's not sustainable because it's very stressful when we're hard on ourselves and we have this loud internal critic. So the other thing is I take on the role of a scientist and I just kind of observe myself through the day, right? Because there's a part of me that's talking to you right now, and then there's another part of me that's aware that I'm talking to you that can observe me talking to you. We all have that ability to witness ourselves doing what we're doing. And that either creates self-consciousness or it creates awareness and understanding. And so if you can witness yourself like a scientist would observe gorillas in the zoo, just watching their behavior, watching what they're doing, not judging it, but just kind of tracking it and being when I act this way, I get this result. So how can I shift my response and my behavior and maybe get a different result? Or I'll notice when I'm wow, I was really impatient with that person. Or wow, I was really present and loving with that person. That felt really good. So it's just being that observer of ourselves throughout the day and having that kind of mindfulness. Too many people have a monkey mind with a super loud inner critic. And that's just how people live. But how can you have more of that observer mind and be mindful and really watch yourself without that inner critic being so loud?
Do you reckon you need a particularly negative moment or dramatic moment in order to gain that perspective if you're in a particularly bad place at that time?
It seems for a lot of people that's true, that you need sort of a massive expectation hangover or a huge wake-up call. But there's also, that's one way. But the other way I feel people get there is they just feel a longing. And they just feel this longing for more peace, more connection, more creativity. They're in the routine of their life. And there's nothing really wrong, but nothing feels super right either. And so there's this longing for more connection. And I think that's what also opens the door for a lot of people.
Nice. How would, again, a massive left turn, but how would you define your job title and what you do at the moment?
I was laughing with a friend last night because it's so hard. Because I do a bunch of things. So I write books. I speak on stages, both personal growth stages and corporate stages. I host a podcast. I lead retreats. I teach online courses. I have a membership community, and I coach people. And my friend was like, well, Christine, you're a life coach. And I'm like, oh, I hate that term. Anybody can call themselves that. And I just, and he's like, but in every aspect, really, that's what you're doing. And that's the closest I can get to it. I'm a mix of a spiritual psychologist and a life coach. And my mission is really to help people end their own suffering, give them the tools and strategies to really heal themselves so they can step into their full potential. And the different ways I do that is maybe through a book or a podcast episode or up on stage teaching. But I think at my core, I'm a teacher. When I was young, Tom, I always used to play teacher. That was my favorite thing in the world to play, teacher. teacher or bank. So there was the entrepreneur part. And I just really I feel, I never thought I could be this happy. I never thought I could be this successful. I never thought that I could have this kind of life that I have now. And the fact, because I just was so depressed so much of my life. And the fact that I've healed that and have created just a way of being in a relationship with myself that feels so good. I just want to share it with as many people as I possibly can, because I feel like I've, seen this great movie or eaten at this amazing restaurant and just want everybody to have the same experience.
What were the sources that allowed you to do that? I'm guessing you read books and read blogs and all those kind of things. What were if you had to kind of pinpoint 2 or 3 places or resources, what they'd be?
Well, those were all helpful, but the things that really helped me the most were my own coaches and my own trainings that I did. So I think books are great. But I think for all of us, we need a teacher, we need a community, we need to be live doing the transformation with other people as well, so we can see we're not alone, because we all have our own blind spots, and that's what I love so much with working with my one-on-one clients is I'm really there. The writing's on the wall, but it's dark. So I just walk in there with the lantern and help them see, right? And provide a space for them where they feel loved and led in a lot of ways. So my first coach that I met when I was 22, her name was Mona, and she was just a total angel in my life and was the person that probably had the most significant impact on me. And then I also went to a place called the University of Santa Monica, where I got 2 master's degrees, one in spiritual psychology and one in consciousness, health, and healing. And I had amazing teachers there, but I also was doing the work with other people. And that was my community. And that was a way to see, wow, I'm not the only one going through this. And then it's also just been through my own, emotional release works and journeys and meditations. And, being a coach to myself, I've always said I'm my own best client. So I don't teach or preach anything that I haven't done.
Good stuff. When someone first starts working with you on a one-to-one basis, what does that initial process look like?
It's different for everybody.
Okay.
I think that putting kind of back to one diet doesn't work for everybody. One coaching structure doesn't work for everybody, because people are at different points. People learn in different styles. People need a different aspect of me. Some people, sometimes with clients, and I can be different things to the same client. Sometimes they really need me to be kind of play that loving parent role that they never had. Sometimes they need a more I'm going to hold you accountable coach. Sometimes they need more my spiritual side. Sometimes they need more of my Virgo get things done, so it depends on the person. And I think, for anybody that works with people or anybody that's looking for a coach, there has to be this resonance of, the person that's holding space for you is someone that's living a life that you'd want to live, not necessarily doing the same things, but that you really feel like you're on the kind of the same path. They're just farther down the road. Okay,
nice. So that is actually very apt for me right now. That's giving me a huge insight. That phrase there. On the concept, the methods are many and principles a few. What are the principles that you're kind of focusing around when you're coaching someone?
Well, kind of the way I look at it is where you are now, where you want to be, and then in the middle is what's in the way. Okay. So I really don't look so much about what are your goals? Tell me all your goals. I really use where they are now and where they want to be as a roadmap to elicit what's in the way. And that's where I start to work with people. So like I said earlier, part of our soul curriculum is to heal these unresolved issues, because we're born, totally connected, totally know we're loved, totally in our full potential. And then things happen and we form this story about ourselves, about what it means to get love, what we have to do to be safe, whose approval and validation we want, what people tell us about us becomes our beliefs about ourselves. If someone abandons us, we have a fear of abandonment. It's just we create this story and this construct. And my work with people is to help them get really clear about what's the story versus what's the truth. And people tend to collect evidence about their story. I just did a Facebook Live on the fear of rejection, which was a big part of my story because it kept like happening. So I had a belief that I get rejected. And so that became my avoidance trap. I'd talk so much about things that I wanted, but I'd spend a lot more time and energy avoiding being rejected. So I wouldn't put myself out there. I wouldn't take risks, all those kind of things. And I've really, I've worked on that one a long time, and I'm really like right now super intentional about like that being totally done. And when we update a story and forgive ourselves for buying into a lot of those beliefs, then we have the opportunity to create a new story. So when I work with people, it's eliciting that story, seeing what beliefs are in the way, and then helping them heal. A lot of people have had trauma, anything from abuse to like somebody teasing you, like everybody's had their stuff. And so really help them heal it, help them create a new story, help them reframe their beliefs, get them into a new energetic so they can attract more of what they want.
Do you find once people have done that, they know the next steps naturally? Or do you find you have to kind of prompt where they need to go?
They need a little help because it's foreign, and people with uncertainty kind of go, like I'm so confused. I'm like, you're not confused. You just haven't been here before. So don't say you're confused because that's not true. It's more about it being new, and unfamiliar can feel scary, but it's not bad. So a lot of times it's helping with the first steps, but then once it's the same thing. Like when we're learning how to walk, we need to hold someone's hand for the first few steps, but then eventually we get it on our own.
Okay, nice. At the risk of turning this into a therapy session for myself, what is, when people don't do the things that they know they should, what are the reasons behind that?
It's a couple things. So a lot of people, we're kind of back to this comfort zone. So if someone's not doing what they know they should, there's either like a fear of rejection or a fear of failure. Like I know I should blog every day, for example. But I'm afraid I'll get a negative comment. I'm afraid I'll be judged. I'm afraid people won't like it. So even though I know I should, it feels much safer to like hide. I know I should work out every day, but I have this like super loud inner critic, and I just don't have the energy to actually go and work out every day and do it because I have such a negative relationship with myself that self-care is really hard for me. A lot of times people don't take care of their physical bodies because their relationship with themselves is so toxic that they don't have the fuel to do things that are healthy and that are about self-care. A lot of times, it all depends. Like you want to give me a specific example?
So for me, what would be the best one? So training for like in different areas of my life, I'm completely consistent. Like training, it's easy for me because it's kind of my background, and I think it's what I've done consistently, and it's almost like part of my personality right now. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to, for example, getting podcasts done on the right dates and the work stuff, then it's harder for me to get that consistency there. Right.
Why do you think it is?
So my inner critic, because I've been identifying this, and I think I automatically tell myself I'm lazy, but mm-hmm. I don't think that's true.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's true either. Yeah. How much do you judge the work that you put out in the world?
A lot.
Okay. So if I knew that I really should eat broccoli, but every time I eat broccoli, my stomach gets upset, how consistent would I be about eating broccoli?
Yeah.
So it's like if you know that every time you're going to do a podcast or every time you're going to put something out there, you're going to judge it, then that sure wouldn't make me consistent about doing my work.
So is it just a case of saying, okay, I'm not going to judge that? Or is it going to just...
Well, I think it's more, so much, it's hard. Like when people are like, okay, I'll just stop judging. It's like, okay, stop breathing too. It's more about leaning into something different. So, with coaching, there's a lot of focus, and with people, there's a lot of focus on how do I stop doing something? Well, sometimes you stop doing something by starting to do something else. So for you, I'd really look at like every day writing a list of what you love about putting out the podcast, like what you love about the interview, like your gifts, what makes you uniquely you, the element you bring to it, your commitment to it, to be present with your guests, to do your research, to ask great questions, and also like your why. You know, what's your vision? Like, I imagine that part of your why is inspiring people and helping people grow. And I know a lot of your audience is men, and there's less resources out there for men right now. It's growing and growing and growing. But the fact that you're putting this kind of transformational work out there is huge. And so it's really about getting excited about your mission and vision and making that bigger than you. Because it's like anything I do, it's not about me, it's about the mission. And it will serve who it serves. But if I start judging it and criticizing it, then I'm totally not going to be inspired to create anything, because my ego is so like, oh my gosh, I'm going to beat the shit out of myself as soon as I put this up. I'm not going to want to do it. So it's really leaning into all your reasons why, and really leaning into all the reasons that make you really amazing at what you do, which is not arrogant. It's just getting in alignment with the truth of who you are.
That makes so much sense. Makes perfect sense.
Good.
You mentioned ego. How does ego play different roles in our lives, and are there different types of ego that we need to be aware of?
You know, the ego gets a bad rap, but it's helpful. You know, if we didn't have our egos, we'd be like floating off into space. So they're useful. How I like to really talk about it more is like the judger. So the ego is important because it helps us care about things and set goals. If we didn't have an ego, like I said, we just all sit around and love and light and la, la, la. But the ego is the one that's like, no, I want to produce a podcast. I really want to write a book. I want to train for this triathlon or whatever it is. That's the ego that helps us like have those goals and the intention. It's also, you know, so that's kind of the healthy ego. The unhealthy ego is the part of us that's super caught up in, what do people think of me? Am I going to get rejected? Am I going to get fit? Am I going to fail? And that unhealthy ego is the ego that tries to keep us safe and keep us small and keep us hidden. And that's the part that will talk us out of anything. That's the part that will judge us to death. That's the part that will doubt ourselves intently and tell ourselves we're a piece of you know what. And so we've got to watch that unhealthy ego that's really like the fear-based judger inside of us, that's giving us the illusion of safety, but it's not really safe at all. So what we want is the healthy ego, that part of us that sets those goals and intentions and everything like that, combined with sort of like our higher self, which watches how much we slip into judgment and moves us back into acceptance, forgiveness, encouragement, and compassion with ourselves.
As your higher self, like, do you find there's ways to tap into that or to make that come to life more?
I mean, meditation's a big part. Really like watching how we talk to ourselves. You know, so many of the one-on-one work I've done with my coaches, in so many ways, their wisdom and their love and their presence in a lot of ways has modeled how I need to talk to myself, like what my own higher self is like. You can even connect your higher self just through, it's sort of like your gut or your intuition. It's like, have you ever had a feeling about something where you're like, oh, that's definitely a no. Like, I don't know what it is, but that's definitely a no. You know, that's your higher self, like giving you insight. And oftentimes too, the higher self, like, we'll get an idea like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. And then our ego will talk us out of it because of fear. And so it's really listening to those thoughts that also come with that feeling of like truth.
Okay, interesting. What do you do when, because obviously you have those days when you wake up and you're just like, bleh, I'm not going to do this today. What's your go-to method? Is it the habits you already formed, or do you have anything that's a bit different that you go to?
Well, I think that if I ever feel that way, I'm like, okay, what do I really need? If I'm feeling blah, am I triggered? Is it a physical thing? Like, what do I need? And how do I really like mother and nurture myself, or for men, father and nurture myself in this way? Like, what's the blah? And some days, you know, we just need to be blah, and we need to like, let that be okay, and call a friend or have a good cry or like whatever it may be. And I definitely have those days. And I just make sure they don't last, you know, day 2, day 3, so on and so forth. But really, so much of what we're here to do is reparent ourselves. And our parents did the best that they could. And this is not about making parents wrong, but they're human too. And so as adults, we have to learn how to soothe ourselves, how to nurture ourselves, how to tend to our own needs. And I think one of the the healthiest things that we can do as humans is to learn how to take care of our own needs and not expect anyone else to take care of them for us, and also not numb or medicate with things like food, alcohol, TV, blah, blah, blah. Because a lot of times when we feel blah, it's like, I'm just going to surf Facebook, or I'm just going to go have like a really unhealthy breakfast, or like, oh, I'm going to call like, my friend with benefits, and that'll make me feel better. It's like on those blah days, how can you really take care of your own needs? Because that's going to create a healthier relationship with yourself. So it's all there. I see them as opportunities to grow and learn how to be a better parent to myself.
Are there any commonalities between the people that come to you and completely change who they are, end up where they want to be? Are there any commonalities between all those types of people?
The people who come to me and do what?
And kind of completely change where they are and end up where they want to be.
Oh, well, everybody mostly does. I think the commonalities are like a readiness and a willingness. Like that's the big thing. Like people who say they want to change versus people who do change are the ones who are really willing to do the work and know there's like no magic recipe, and are willing to look at kind of the scary parts that they may not want to look at, and are willing to go to sort of the tender places, and are willing to commit to being disciplined about their life. Because, we change by healing and having awareness, but it doesn't really change until there's integration and we choose different behavior and we create different habits in our life. I see a lot of people get stuck in the awareness trap of personal growth. They can psychoanalyze themselves to death. They've read a lot of books. They have a lot of awareness about why they are the way they are, but it's not changing because they're not implementing new behavior and new thoughts and new feelings that create the changes that they really long for.
So is that generally down to, like we spoke about earlier, a fear of judgment or a fear of whatever?
I think it's both fear, and it's also just like choice. It takes a strong and clear, it takes commitment. Like I would definitely say growth and change is a lot easier for me now, but it wasn't in the past. Like when I made the choice to get off antidepressants, it was really, 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 really hard. And it took a long time, and I had to change a lot of things in my life, and people ask me how I did it, and I'm like, well, it took almost 3 years, really kind of 2. I really had to be intentional about it. It was really uncomfortable. It was really hard. The stuff I had to do was crazy, but I was committed. And so that's the biggest thing. Like, how committed are you? Because we live in an instant gratification world. We want what we want when we want it, and we want it now. But if you're, 25, 35, 45, like you've had decades of being a certain way, and change does not happen overnight. It takes commitment.
What was the conversation like in your head when you're going from taking antidepressants to not taking antidepressants?
Oh my God, can I do this? That was like a big thing. And, so much of my story in my life, because I started them when I was like 10 or 11 and started getting off of them at 29. So it was a good 2 decades of my life.
Jeez, that's the majority of your life.
Yeah. The first part was really doubting if I could, really being scared if I could, but I had to eventually shift that belief and be like, so I didn't go from I can't do it to I can. I went from I can't do it to I'm willing to try to I'm willing to believe that maybe I could to okay, maybe I can to all right, I can do this. It was like a gradual process. And I needed a lot of support. And part of coming off of it was I'd have, really awful thoughts and really scary thoughts. And I had to, again, become that observer and know that I have emotions, but I'm not my emotions. And I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. And that I had to kind of create that separation between myself and my thoughts, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. If you were going to put a billboard with whatever you wanted somewhere in the world, what would it say?
Be nice to yourself.
Okay.
Honestly.
What's that?
I think that the biggest pain people experience happens in their relationship with themselves. It might not have initially happened that way. You might have gotten hurt by someone else. But then because we don't resolve that, we internalize it and we make it mean something about us. And what's tricky is that being hard on ourselves is effective in terms of it gets stuff done. And it's almost socially acceptable to like be busy and be hard on ourselves and talk negative about ourselves. And when someone gives us a compliment, deflect it. So I think if everybody was a lot nicer to themselves and healed their own unresolved stuff, the world would change.
Do you think people deflect compliments because it goes against their story that they're telling themselves?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think people have a hard time receiving love. As much as people want love and connection, we get really awkward. We get like an awkward 14-year-old when it comes at us. And it's like, again, it's that self-worth conversation. And really like, and also like that obligation, like if I accept a compliment, I have to give you one back. And it's like, no, it's okay to just receive a compliment and really take that in and know that that's a gift someone's giving you. And it doesn't make you cocky, doesn't make you arrogant. It just makes you connected to someone else. So receive it.
We mentioned right at the beginning how you start your day. How do you close your days off?
So I close my days with, well, I heard something. So Ariana Huffington is a mentor and friend of mine. She has been for years, and I've interviewed her a couple times. And in my last interview with her, she talked about bringing the romance back to sleep, to getting ready for bed, and making like your evenings romantic. And that doesn't necessarily mean with another person. It means like romancing sleep. So my biggest thing is I get off screens at least an hour before I'm going to bed. I try for 2. So that means like no TV, no phone, no internet. I do not work at night. I like start to like calm my brain down, because anytime we're looking at screens, even if you're using, sort of the yellow filter on your screens, you're getting that blue light and it's stimulating your brain. So I get off of screens and I read, usually I'll read. And then I just do a gratitude list of like what I am grateful for the day. And then I go to bed.
Simple. Good stuff. Simple. I really believe that kind of romancing sleep, like as you put it there, I think that's a great idea. I was speaking to this guy on the podcast months ago, but he works with very high level football teams. And he says that the hour and a half either side of sleep is almost like another sleep cycle. So that it just gets you into that mode. And I think that's really cool. Yeah.
And I make sure my room is super, super dark, like no lights, no beeping, no computer charger pluggers in, like it's really dark. And if I'm traveling, I always bring an eye mask with me because again, like cortisol, we don't want our cortisol levels high. And when we're in a dark room, it really helps the body restore. And if we can't see any light at all, it helps really lower our cortisol levels.
Have you played around with room temperature?
Not so much. I don't like it too hot or too cold.
Perfect. And have you tried any kind of sleep hacks or technology that's kind of got you sleep quicker?
I use the Sleep Cycle app just to track my sleep and to look at because on the Sleep Cycle app, you can choose, you can customize it. So did I work out that day? Did I have coffee? Was I on my phone at night? Did something stressful happen? And you can track how that affects your sleep. So I like to look at that. I love hacking stuff and I love studying stuff. So that's a fun one that I use.
Who's the first person that comes to mind when you hear the word successful?
When I hear the word successful?
Yeah.
Oprah.
And why is that?
I grew up with her and I just feel like she's really not only been successful in terms of her TV shows and everything, but I really think that she's been someone that has taken she can relate to anyone, which is to me the epitome of success. Most people respect her and like her. And I also think she's been a really great bridge between mainstream and spirituality. And what I respect so much about her is she's a constant learner. She never acts like she knows everything. Even though she's one of the most successful, richest people in the world, she always learns from other people. She's a constant seeker. And I really respect that about her.
And are there any books that you've gifted most to other people?
Well, the book that I give most to men is The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida. the book that I gift a lot to people that want to start something creative or want to start their own business is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. It's all about like overcoming that resistance. And then of course I gift my own books too.
Cool. Well, that's a perfect time to say, where can people find out a bit more about your own books and yourself and that kind of stuff?
Oh, awesome. So Christine Hassler is my website, and Expectation Hangover is my last book. And it's for any age, male, female. It's basically heal your past, change your present, get what you want. So it's not about managing expectations. It's really overcoming that disappointment. And then my podcast, where you can listen to me coach people live on the air, which is super amazing to listen to, is Over It and On With It. And then my membership community, where you can come and learn from me every month, is Inner Circle. And that's at christinehassler.com/inner circle.
Perfect. If you have one message to say to the audience, what would it be?
For some reason, the message "it's not too late" is coming through to tell your audience. So whatever it is that you want to start, whatever dream you have, stop telling yourself it's too late or there's not enough time, and begin.
Perfect. I think that's a great place to end the show. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Alpha Movement Podcast. This episode was live streamed in my free Facebook group, Alpha Athletes Page 2.0, where you can get priority access to the guests. You can ask your questions via me to them and get them answered. You can stay up to date with the latest goings on in the Alpha Movement world, and you can access me, my ramblings, my posts, and all the fun stuff. Also, if you enjoy the show, you can head over to patreon.com/Alpha Movement Podcast, and you can pledge however much you want per month, just to keep the show on the road. It's something that sucks up a lot of time. Well, I say sucks up, it's the absolute pleasure to do, but it sucks up time in some way. It sucks up my money and resource, and I want to keep this going for as long as I can because I know how much you guys get from the show. So if you head over to patreon.com/Alpha Movement Podcast, you can pledge as little or as much as you want every single month, and you can cancel it whenever you would like, and it just helps to keep the show going. Other than that, if you head over to iTunes, you can find us, leave a 5-star review if you enjoyed the show, and you can find us on social media. This show relies on your support, so spread the word. If you enjoy it, reach out to whoever my guest was this week and myself, say you enjoyed the show, and I shall see you soon for another episode of the Alpha Movement Podcast.